Welcome to Life of Legacy, your key to a better life. I'm your host, Jonathan Lawrence Clark, and I'm here today with Coach Tierra Terry, head coach of Virginia Union University's women's basketball program. She began her coaching career as an assistant at her alma mater, Winston-Salem State University, where she was previously a member of the women's basketball team for 4 years. Then she served as an assistant coach and recruiting coordinator for Western Carolina before becoming an assistant coach for women's basketball program at William and Mary. In the final season at William and Mary, the team finished with 21 wins, which was the most in school history. Other than basketball, Tierra has a master's in psychology with a specialization in counseling from the University of West Florida, is a member of Psi Chi International Honor Society for Psychology, and is an active community volunteer with Upward Basketball, the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and Women's Basketball Mentor Program. Tierra, thank you so much for agreeing to come on Life of Legacy today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Very, very excited to talk to you today. Now, I noticed that, I looked at the combination of your background there and your activities, and you have a nice blend of academic success as well as athletic success. And from what I've read, you're known for focusing on both basketball skill development and academic success for your athletes. So that's definitely something I want to talk about today, is what your approach is for advocating for both of those, and are there any overlaps between what it takes to be a successful athlete and what it takes to be successful academically and in life in general. So I definitely want to talk about that a lot today. But first, I want to learn a little bit about you specifically. And I found some interesting information on you, interesting background information. Your dad, Delaney Rudd, was a professional basketball player. Is that correct?
Yes, he was.
All right. So he played in the CBA in Greece, in the NBA for the Jazz and Blazers, and in France as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you grew up in France. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood experience and how you grew up and some of the things you were good at and interested in as a kid?
Well, yeah, I spent most of my childhood in Paris and Lyon, France. I went to a private school in France. It was interesting. I was the only athlete's child. Everybody else was like diplomacy and government, and I just got kind of mixed in there. I was the only, professional athlete child. I learned a lot at that school. First day, they told me once I enter those doors, I can't speak English anymore. So,
Okay.
so my first class, I was, pretty lost, but with the help of my parents and just my determination, I learned to speak French. And I did have one professor that was very, helpful, that did try to help me transition a little bit. And with me being younger, it was definitely easier to pick up the language. Um,
I've heard
so
that.
yeah, so I was fluent. I pretty much, I still consider myself a French person for the most part. I grew up there, so it was very easy for me once I got over, the hump of like learning the new language and getting adjusted and just having to be a French person, pretty
Okay.
much.
So you mentioned, I heard you say you were the only athlete's kid. So talk to me about that. Like, what effect did that have on your experience?
Oh, as a child, it's already hard to adjust. So, um, mm, it was rough at first. Um, a lot of people, they know professional athletes exist, but a lot of people don't really understand the world of athletics, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So it was definitely a big adjustment. Um, we had PE courses, and I guess I was just a natural athlete, and I just went in, and whatever we did, I considered a competition, and never played football, soccer in my life, and went in there and like played with all the boys, and then went in gymnastics, and I was a competitor, so whatever sport was involved, I was I was there all the time. The cuisine is different. So that was a big adjustment. Just trying to get used to someone pulling out a platter of rabbit for you, and you're like, I've never had that before, and I don't really want it. But
Okay.
in France, fragua is a typical like cuisine. My palate never adjusted to it. It's pretty much pureed duck liver, and I just could never
Yeah,
get
that'd be
with it.
tough. That'd be tough for me too.
Yeah, so the food, adjusting to that. The good thing is, France, Paris and Lyon are both cities. So we did a lot of walking. I was able to walk around, not have to drive everywhere. It's more like, New York City. You get on a bus, you walk, there's corner stores, everything's convenient, everyone's healthier, everyone's, active, moving around. So it definitely is a different perspective, I guess you can say.
Okay. Different vibe, different feel,
Hmm.
the lifestyle there. Very interesting. So, where were you born? Because I could hear from you explain the story that you learned English first, obviously. So, where were you born originally?
I was born in Greensboro, North Carolina,
Okay.
but I immediately moved to Greece because my father was already playing in Greece. So um, my family's very North Carolina. I'm not. um,
What does that mean? Very North Carolina.
just my family in particular is from northeastern North Carolina. Very small country towns. My parents grew up in very poverty driven area. My, for example, my mother, their house didn't have running water when she was growing up. They used outhouses and the old school wells and washing clothes
Man.
and my father, he grew up with his grandfather for the most part, and there was farms and like you he had to he had to go pick tobacco and like it's something like the out of the old books, but I mean nothing wrong with it. It's just it's very different than my way of I guess growing up because I grew up in the city, so I appreciate their backgrounds, but it's very different than what I grew up in.
Different from your experience.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm glad I was able to see both sides because their background definitely built their character and it taught me a lot and how to be tough and face adverse situations at a young age. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm very glad that I don't think I was cut out for the country. Nothing wrong with it, but I don't think I was cut out for the country.
Well, because that wasn't your experience. If that was all you knew,
Yes, for sure.
then you would have been okay. But I definitely understand your perspective on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So interesting story. So how long were you in France and what age did you move?
I was in France from first grade, so around 6 or 7, first grade to right before high school.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you go to North Carolina when you moved back to the States?
Yeah, so I went to high school in Kernersville, North Carolina, and went to Winston-Salem State and went to West Florida right after that. So um, I also grew up some other places in there, but for the most part, it was like once we got in France, that's where we settled for a little while, and then yeah, then came back and finished high school in North Carolina. Both of my sisters were born in North Carolina and raised in North Carolina, so even between us, there's a difference in climate, I guess.
Okay, gotcha. Now, is one of those sisters lucky?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Lucky Road is one of your sisters, and she's playing at is it West Virginia?
Yeah, she graduated and she's now the Dobo at Presbyterian.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
then my other sister Mia, she played at A&T for a year, finished her schooling. She was a graduate assistant at Maryland Eastern Shore, and now she's in nursing school. So yeah, she's
Okay.
we're
So
all
everybody played some.
yeah,
Ev-
for sure. For sure.
Man, it's in the genes, right?
Yeah, yeah. We have to give I have to give Mia a hard time because she was an Aggie, but it's okay. It's okay. She's a Ram now, so she finished with greatness.
Nice, nice. That's a nice little jab there. Finish with greatness. It's a
Mhm.
compliment, but it's also not a
Yeah,
compliment.
no knock to anybody else, but I have strong pride in my Rams. So,
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So you all have a good relationship with your sisters, pretty
oh,
much.
for sure. Yeah. They're much younger than me, but we all have a good relationship.
So you mentioned moving around quite a bit. How did that affect your development in your childhood? Is there anything that still affects you from that, or how did you take that in terms of like moving and having to make new friends and adjust? How was that for you?
So there was a point um when I was little, he played for Utah. And it was interesting because I was the only person of color in I guess it was preschool, my preschool class. And my mom still she kind of thinks the story is funny, but I came home crying one day and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, someone in my class asked me why I'm not white like you. And I told them, "You're not white, you're peach." So at the time, the crayons were peach, and that's the way I could translate her skin tone. But,
That's a very
yeah, it
a really
was,
childlike way to reason that, right?
yeah. So, some experiences like that you'll never forget because you didn't understand it when you were a child. And at the time, my good friend in Utah was a white girl. So I didn't understand, like why it was such a big deal. And then you go to France and it was so refreshing. There's so much diversity and acceptance, and it's just like it's nothing if there's a black French person, a white French person, a Spanish French person. Like it doesn't matter. It's just one. You're French, and as much as we would love to say that in America, we all know sometimes that might not be the case. So,
Right.
so those are different. That's one, thing that impacted my childhood, I guess you could say. Um, Moving around a lot. Ironically, I translate that now to recruiting, which is it's a good thing because I have experiences from different areas of the world, different cultures, different languages, just different ways of doing things. And also, if someone tells me I'm from Salt Lake City, I can say, "Oh, well, I know what that looks like," or if oh, we're from Nevada, like, oh, I, live not too far from there. You may not remember everything about it, but you know that that was part of your journey and moving around, you have to adapt a lot. So it doesn't mean you have to change who you are. It just means that you have to start understanding how people do things in different ways in different areas. And I think that's helped my line of thinking too. When people think there's only one way to get something done, I'm like, oh no, there's several ways to do things. It's not just
Right.
one way of getting something done. So I'll say, of course, it was more positive than negative for me, for sure. The only thing that, as a child, is negative is that you leave all your friends. So it's kind of the equivalent of a military child being, moved around and
Right. Sounds similar.
yeah.
So do you think it improved your ability to like adapt to change as well?
Yeah, and just, like I said, to relate to people, because sometimes people think that if it's not their way, it's not correct, or and I think it's helped me see things from different perspectives,
Okay.
so that I'm not like, "Mm, that's the only right way to do this.
Okay. It's made you more open-minded.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. That's definitely a positive.
Mhm.
Interesting. And so, with your upbringing and experience, you also speak three languages because, you learned English, then you
Mhm.
learned French, and you also speak Spanish.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's interesting. Did you study Spanish? You learn Spanish just from taking it in school?
Um. Well, our family, for one, like we, no one in my family speaks Spanish, ironically, but it's in the cultural line. So, um, I just took it upon myself. Really, I took some in high school, but it's really always just been ever since I was little. I was just determined to pick up Spanish as well. Um, because I'm like, oh, it's part of me and I love it. And so it just didn't stick with anyone else, but it's but no, it's something that I love, and just decided I wanted to pick up. Growing up in France as well, the way the school was set up, once you get to a certain level, you like if I would have stayed a little longer, I would have had to pick up either, I think it was German or Japanese and Spanish or Italian. So at the school I went to, you had no choice but to pick up some other languages, and which I'm a proponent of. I love it, and so it just, I don't know. I just did it myself and just talking to other people, and then of course when I moved to Florida, I definitely was able to speak it all the time. So it was like French, the immersion. You just pick it up and it's easier.
Okay. So while we're on your upbringing in childhood, what were you like as a child? Like, what were your interests, your strengths? What did you notice you kind of gravitated towards?
Um, well, I have always loved sports, I will say. Um, there's a picture of me dunking on one of those little kid goals when I was like 2 years old with my dad's big shoes on. So I guess in a way we had no choice but to love basketball. You're around it so much that you just start learning you start having a love for it. Um, I did I did every sport you could think of pretty much. We even did handball. I've done softball, baseball, gymnastics, track, everything.
Lots of sports.
Yeah, lots of sports. I've always been I like reading, actually. I actually enjoy reading.
Okay.
I used to draw when I was younger, and I've always been a music person. So that love came from my grandfather, and it's just always.
How so from your
My
grandfather?
grandfather was a professional gospel singer.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So so I'm not I won't sit here and lie and say I listened to gospel my whole life when I was little. But his love of music for sure touched me.
So okay, so if you're not listening to gospel, what do you listen to?
Oh, mostly reggae and some soca, some a lot of salsa, reggaeton. I go all over. I mean, I've listened to jazz, I've listened to blues, I've listened to classical. Um, the only one I can't say, well, there's two that I really cannot say that I listen to, and that would be heavy metal and like the I don't know what it's called now, but the rave music that just sounds like it's just, I don't know, I just can't I can't function with it. It just is too much. But I mean, I'll listen to country if I like it. I mean, I don't have a preference. If it's good music, it's good music to me.
Okay. Do you tend to like more mellow music? I heard you mention a lot of genres that kind of tend to be a little on the softer side. Do you like it
Uh,
upbeat? Like when you listen to reggae, do you like the more
I,
you like up tempo, slow? Uh,
I like both.
okay.
And I like some hip hop, I like a lot of hip hop too. Um, I joke with my players. I'm like, do you know what he's saying? Can you figure out what he's saying without Googling the words? Because you know, but
Getting
there's
harder and harder.
oh yeah, the mumble rap as they call it, that's hard for me to listen to sometimes, but I'll listen to stuff for beats and um I played the piano when I was younger, so if something has a nice beat, I tend to pick it up. So
Three artists that
my favorites?
yeah.
Oh gosh. Hmm, that's tough. Hmm. I have to say, hmm. Well, one of them a lot of people probably don't know. His name is Bad Bunny, but he's a reggaeton artist. He's definitely one of my favorites.
Okay.
Um, I listen to a lot of Vibes Cartel. Hmm.
It's two.
Bec- because of my dad, I listened to Luther growing up, and Luther's forever a classic.
No, wait a minute. Why did you say because of your dad? Why did you preface it by saying because of your dad
Because
before you said
he
Luther?
because he introduced it to me, not because it's not great music. Because before every game he listened to Luther. So
Oh, okay. I
yeah,
thought you
so
put that in there because you didn't want to make yourself sound like an old head. So
no,
you
no, no,
said,
no, no. I love some Luther.
okay, okay.
No,
See,
no, I love Luther.
that's the way you're supposed to say it. I love some Luther. That's the
Yeah.
exact wording you're supposed to use when you talk about Luther. I love some Luther.
No, yeah, big, little, doesn't matter. Luther is
You
Luther is
like
Luther.
so you like skinny Luther and and plus size Luther. You like them both.
I feel like Luther is Luther. I will say Big Luther has an advantage, but
What's the
I like
what power? What kind of advantage?
I just think his voice sounded a little different when he was bigger. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I still think both are great. I mean, whatever.
Okay,
Um,
okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm a Luther fan, so that's why I wanted to clarify. I was like, wait a minute, what about she putting
no,
it?
no, no. Luther's
My daddy introduced me to Luther, and
he
then
introduced me.
okay.
I have to say it like that because my dad is the original Luther fan. So I
Oh,
have
he's the original, so he was the one,
yeah.
one person who was cheering for Luther that made Luther keep going forward. He's the
Yeah,
first one.
man. Like my dad, like I don't know. I asked him one day, "How do you listen to this soft music before you play basketball?" Because when I was younger, I had to listen to like Lil Scrappy and
A beat, yeah,
whoever, Nuck If You Buck, whoever. I just couldn't go out there after listening to like Sade and play basketball. I don't know.
yeah. But you see, you're holding stuff close to the vest. What's the one song you would get hyped for before a game? You're going into a game, a big game. You need
Oh,
to get hyped. What's in your playlist? What are you playing?
old like high school me or
Yeah, that's the high school you. What are
uh
you listening to?
high school me was listening to some Pastor Troy or Jay-Z.
Okay, okay, okay. Gotcha.
Depends. Like, probably Pastor Troy right before the game. Jay-Z was probably like an hour plus before the game.
Right. Okay, okay. All right, you gave a little bit of information. You didn't give a specific jam, a specific song, but I'll let you slide if you don't want to share what you were playing in there.
If people listen to Pastor Troy, they could probably figure out a
Think
couple
about figure it out.
songs. Yeah.
Too funny, too funny. All right. Well, cool. Yeah, I wanted to start out by asking a little bit about your background, because I'm trying to get a sense of what makes you you, and also bridge that into what does it take for someone to stay aligned with their dream from childhood into adulthood. So you talked about heavy sports family, that you played multiple sports, so you were big into that. You had some other interests, but a lot of focus on sports, right? So if you're thinking about what sets people apart as athletes, you were able to, make it to the college level to where you were able to have a college basketball experience as well as high school. What advice do you give to someone who says, I want to play college basketball, and let's say they're in middle school?
Hmm.
What advice do you give them from your experience? What helped you to make it, and what advice would you give them?
Mm. Ooh, I would first tell them make sure it's something that you really, really want because it is going to take a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice, um, a lot of time away from your friends, a lot of time, focused on your craft, and just the mental toughness to get through the physical training. And also, the biggest thing I would say that younger people need to focus on is the fact that you need to be coachable. If you cannot be coachable at an early age, you get older and you start getting entitled and you feel like people don't need to coach you and you don't take the feedback and you never get better.
Hmm.
So that's one thing I've seen on my journey is that people that are coachable and work hard sometimes beat talent out because now I can take you and put you to another level. Whereas if you think you're great already and don't want the feedback, you might stay where you're at, or all of a sudden everything might be the coach's fault when it's
Hmm.
really you not trying to adjust.
Okay. So, what do you think makes some kids uncoachable?
Um, in a respectful way, some kids have never in their households have never been told no, have never been asked to do any chores or asked to do anything extra, or sometimes they just because that's their precious child, they don't um, take time to discipline.
Mm,
So sometimes it starts in that way. Sometimes it develops from maybe an ego where they've already been good for a long time, and people are telling them how good they are, and now they think that they don't need anybody else because they're that good, they've arrived. um, what else? This may seem a little different, but if you can't be a good teammate, sometimes you can't be coachable because maybe your teammate's trying to tell you something that maybe either the coach said or maybe the teammate sees it themselves. And if you can't take that constructive criticism, then that makes you not coachable as well too, because then you're going to start thinking, well, the teammates against me, the coaches against me, everybody's against me, and you start developing a negative train of thought too in that way. Those are
okay.
some of the biggest things I would say I've seen.
Okay. Interesting. So, some of what you said was based in life experience at home in
Hmm.
terms of, our parents conditioning their kids to take constructive criticism and to be disciplined and structured, whether it's chores and, having holding them to certain standards,
Hmm.
not letting them make excuses and things like that. So it sounds like sometimes a lot of things that happen at home bleed over into the sports world when kids come try to play on a team.
Oh, absolutely. I'll say, for example, um, when I told my dad that I was serious about basketball, and when I told him I wanted a Division I scholarship, he did what was necessary to help me get there. Now there were days where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go to the gym. Oh, I gotta listen to him tell me how I'm doing everything wrong, and I gotta fix this. I gotta run a mile today." Like as a child, you sometimes, of course, go, "Oh my gosh, this is too much."
Right.
But I was fortunate enough to have a father who played Division I basketball, who knew what it took to get there, and who knew what it took once you got there, because the steps of preparation are just helping you get there, and then you have to take more of that and add on to what the college coach is asking you to do. And we all know the transition from high school to college can be very rough,
Yes.
especially depending on what type of coaching you've received in the past. So um, some coaches are really, really tough, and you won't know that until you get there. And some coaches um, have a different way of doing things, but the conditioning and the mental preparation for college is tough. And the earlier you can start trying to train your mind to do all that, the better. There's a saying, sit around the table with people you want to be like, or in that position you want to be in. I knew that I wanted to be a Division I athlete. I started hanging around people that had the mentality to become Division I athletes. That
Mm,
doesn't mean you have to leave all your friends behind, but that means when it's time to go to the gym instead of the movies, you have to go to the gym.
very true. And a lot of what you said, there's parallels in other things as well. You know, I mean, the transition from high school to college, it's rough
Hmm.
athletically, but it's also rough on some people academically as well.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. So those are things you have to build and prepare for in advance so that you're ready when the expectation goes from here to here, that you're ready for that change in expectation.
Hmm.
And the professors are not generally, the professors are not handholders when you go to college. It's your
Hmm.
responsibility to make sure you do what you're supposed to do. Nowadays, when you're K through 12, there's a lot of, you know, tolerance for excuses and turning in assignments late. And, you know, that's not necessarily preparing kids for the real world, for college or the real world.
Hmm.
So, I'm a little, I've seen that with my kids, and my son has benefited from that because he sometimes lacks the discipline he needs. And so a teacher will take an assignment late from him, but I make it clear to him that it's not going to stay that way, and it's not
Hmm.
acceptable to us.
Hmm.
Whether she takes it or not, we want you to
Hmm.
turn it in on time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's important. Just having that social support from people that, even though you might not want to hear it, or it might hurt your feelings a little bit or whatever, just having people tell you the truth, because yeah, the real world is different. And if you live in a bubble and only do things this way, or can turn in assignments late, don't have to go running because nobody told you to go running. If you don't have that, if you don't build that self discipline early, and that internal motivation, then you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because when that deadline hits and you go, "Oh, can I have a couple more minutes?" Like, no, no, you can't. This is the deadline. If you can't get your job done, then we will find somebody else.
Absolutely. So, in listening to those things and those keys to success, I'm hoping that anybody that's out there that's wanting to play college basketball or advance past the high school level is paying attention to what you're saying, because that discipline, sacrifice, coachability, being willing to take constructive criticism, surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded and who want what you want, which I always say is guarding your inner circle to make
Mm-hmm.
sure you're surrounding yourself with people who help you reach your goal, right? Because on the converse of that, if you surround yourself with the wrong people, even if you're on the right track personally, it can be detrimental to you reaching your goal if they're not about the right things.
Right. Right.
So when you're working at the college level and you're helping your athletes stay on track academically as well as grow as athletes, what are you able to communicate to them when you have somebody come in that maybe in high school they skipped some classes, they were able to kind of slack off a little bit because few of their teachers were coaches. That happens, right? They had a system in high school that made sure they stayed academically eligible and all that stuff, and then they come to college and it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you able to say to them to help them change their behaviors and stay on track?
Well, I do want people to understand that we do watch, we look at that type of stuff for sure. Um, if we get a report from your school and you were absent 100 days, and we're like, why were you absent 100 days? um, so we do pay attention to that type of stuff. I ask the coach what kind of student they are so that we can kind of gauge an expectation. Um, if I understand, I mean, I've been an athlete before. There are systems for certain situations, and while it's cool to have it in high school to be able to float through, at the same time, sometimes it hurts you for sure because you get to college, like you said, and people are not doing the things that they used to do because we can get NCAA violations for trying to help you do certain things academically. Um, I think the biggest thing that I try to emphasize is that you have to maintain a certain GPA to stay eligible, right? Um, the biggest the biggest thing that I think high school students should start doing early is the NCAA clearinghouse and having conversations with their guidance counselors about how to stay on track for graduation, but also for eligibility.
Okay.
Because a lot of people don't understand that there's core courses that must be completed. You have a core GPA, not your overall GPA. You have a core GPA that you have to maintain too. And there's certain credit hours. And the earlier you can get your eligibility status updated, the better. You don't want to go into the end of your senior year waiting to see if you're eligible to go somewhere. Because I came from Division Ones and we recruit 2 years in advance. So if you're a 2021, right, well, a 2022 this year, let's say, at a Division One, they're going to need to know that you're academically able to handle it because a lot of people sign 2022s early. Division Two, we might be able to hang on a little longer, but we still want to know that you can complete the work when you get here. We don't want to be worried about having to chase somebody to class, having to class check you, every day, every week, whenever we need to do it, just to make sure you're going to class. I mean, as a college student, no one should have to chase you to make sure you go to class, but it does happen. But I would think just getting a free education and ending with a degree would be enough to motivate someone to go to class, especially when people come from backgrounds and areas that they never would have gotten an opportunity if it wasn't for athletics. So I think it's something that, like I said, that internal motivation is going to be important because it's something at the end of the day, your coaches are not going to get a degree for you. And when you get to this level, if you can't make it academically, your scholarship usually just won't be renewed. And then you'll have to find another option, or you'll be back at home being someone that could have been great, but you decided not to take it serious.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want that either. So my encouragement is to do the right thing, even though someone might have an easier way for you to do the right thing and to challenge yourself. If no one else challenges you, challenge yourself because that translates into academics, that translates into life, that translates into skill development. If you get to college and the coaches are busy, what are you going to say? Oh, I couldn't work on my game because nobody could work out with me. Like you have a gun, you have ball handling, you have a friend. Like you can do stuff on your own as well. So um, it starts a lot with that self discipline.
Okay. Yeah, self-discipline is big in, like you said, multiple areas. So yeah, having that when you go to college is going to be huge, and not expecting people to kind of coddle you and constantly tell you what you need to be doing, right?
Hmm.
So what do you you've been a recruiter, as well. You worked on that side of things, and I've coached a few athletes who are kind of at the high school level right now. So what is your advice about visibility and exposure for athletes? Because I know right now the AAU circuit is big, and so a lot of kids are playing AAU because they think that's going to give them the visibility they need to
Hmm.
get noticed by college coaches and recruiters.
Hmm.
So, do you agree with that, or are there any other avenues or things that people should consider? Should they be? Some people are online; they're all posting, videos on Instagram and things like
Hmm.
that, and it's always going to be a highlight reel, obviously. So you're not going to see too many weaknesses as a
Oh,
recruiter or a coach when you look on social media. Uh, but what do you think? Like, if you're someone who's not if you're a player that's not involved in the AU circuit and you're a good high school basketball player, can you still get found? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
yeah, the AAU circuit clearly is big right now. Um, a lot of people flock to like the bigger names, the Under Armours, the Nikes, the like high name circuits, I guess you could say. But you can still be found on a smaller AAU team as long as you find a coach that's really doing it to help you. Also, unfortunately, we are in a virtual era right now. So any kind of live streams that you can send a coach, like, this is our live stream game links, or um, I always tell people to have highlights and full game available because, yeah, the highlights, I mean, that's what they are. They're highlights. Like they're going to highlight what you do great. Um, even we had a film session one time, we did highlights and lowlights, like just so people understood, like, yeah, this makes you look good, but this makes you look not so good.
Right.
But the biggest thing is finding someone who's genuinely trying to help you. Um, some people have different reasons for being in coaching or AAU or basketball or whatever, but find someone who's genuinely trying to help you, not who's trying to push you to a certain direction or um, trying to even having an honest conversation like, I know you want to go to this level, but this level is more where you're at and more who's contacting you. So why don't we try to focus on this level? Because a lot of players have high aspirations, which there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, do you want to go somewhere and sit on the bench and be unhappy, or do you want to go somewhere and make an impact? And if you want to go somewhere and make an impact, you have to be realistic with yourself sometimes. There's nothing wrong with Division One, Division Two, Division Three, NAIA. There's nothing wrong with any level. It's still college basketball. So if you want to play college basketball and a handful of D2s are reaching out and one D1 pops up, like you have to kind of gauge what level you're going to succeed at. It doesn't mean that you're not capable. It just means you might succeed at this level. So The other thing a good high school player could probably do is I know at Division II level a lot will bring people up and let them try out or play pickup with the team. So you might not have gotten a lot of exposure, but maybe if you are under the radar and you come up here and we can see you play against like our team, we can gauge, can you play at this level? So that's another thing that high school students can do.
Okay. So they can actually reach out and request a tryout.
So yeah, they can reach out with like their, academic information if they have some highlights, film, whatever. And if you do a visit with the school and they say, hey, we want to try you out, some people get picked up that way as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And so if you're a parent and you
hmm
mentioned making sure you get with the coach who is in it for you and in it for the right reasons and really going to help you develop and get where you need to be. So, number one, how would a parent go about finding a coach like that in this sea of AAU programs? Uh, where and sometimes the parents are shopping their if the child is really good, sometimes the parents shop their kids around to different
hmm
AAU programs to see who's going to give what and all kinds of different things, right? So there's that.
hmm
But if you're a parent who, you just need your kid to get better and to be able to get some visibility as well, how would you go about finding a program like that?
I mean, yeah, I think you definitely have to do your research. If you maybe in the area, if you know some players that currently play for the team, to try to ask them what their experience has been. Look at the coaches' results. Like, are they giving people opportunities to go division? I mean, to go play basketball, no matter the division. Like I said, if you're Division III, you still made it to college. You know,
Right,
you're still getting results. Obviously, you want an AAU coach that's connected to people. You don't want someone that can't put you in front of people. So
okay,
whether it's playing or whether it's sending film or and I think people unfortunately, forget about the high school coaches a lot too. But the high school coaches are instrumental too because they're the ones that see your child every day. They see them in the hallways, they see them at lunch, they see them after school. Um, they have access to their transcripts right there. So if you can get your high school coach involved as well with the film part, and maybe your high school coach knows about the AAU coaches in the area. Maybe they can tell you, no, I haven't heard good things about that program. Don't go there. If you see the turnover rates of people, if you see people just leaving left and right, and you don't understand like they were just there last year and then they left the program, and then people just keep turning over, that might be some kind of red flag that you
right,
might not want to go there.
right.
So yeah, just I mean, I guess I'm a vibe person too. If you talk to the coach and you get a good vibe or you get a bad vibe, I say go with your gut.
So generally, would you say, because some parents, their kids are playing sports, but they didn't come up playing sports and they don't know much about it, right? So generally, is it the parents' responsibility to make sure their child gets visibility and gets help, like in terms of having that film, putting it together, sending it to colleges? Should the parent be initiating that process, or the coach, or is it the parent pulling the
Hmm.
coach into the process?
I honestly would say as long as the coach is doing it for the right reason, the coach should probably handle a lot of that because there's how do I put this? Sometimes parents get too involved, and
Because they're too close.
yeah, and also because you know, at you have to have a respect for coaches, and even at the high school level, especially at the high school level, you have to respect your coaches and that they're trying to help your child, and um, leave that line of communication open, because once they get to college, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're not really going to talk to the coaches that much. Um, well, we prefer you not to talk to the coaches unless there's, I mean, honestly, unless there's like a question of safety or welfare, where we really need to talk to you. But
but not about minutes and
yeah, don't like calling about minutes and why this didn't happen. Like, there needs to be an understanding. So that's why I say, like, I'm leaning more toward coaches, because the coaches can help wean you off a little bit, but also help that process, just because they should know more people because of the profession that they're in. Now, during the recruiting process, I definitely talk to the parents, because I want to know who the parents are, and I want to know, if especially the kids have good relationships with their parents. I do want them to understand that we want to take care of their children. It's just, yeah, there's certain things that you have to kind of draw a line on. And I'm not saying don't put your child out there. That's your child. I know you want them to succeed and do well. But as far as really getting to the college coaches, I think that AAU and high school coaches should be heavily involved in that.
okay. Now there's some services out there who will put together a film on your kids and things like that as well. Is
Hmm.
that something you think is a good idea?
Yeah, there's some, like one, for example, called Hoop Juice. He does a really good job. He was a former college coach, and he knows how to connect with people. And he takes players that may be under the radar and helps them. There's also like NYG, Joe Fenelon Services, New York area, that helps get exposure. The Carolina Girls Report. Um, there's a lot. Brett McCormick, like ASGR results, and I just I think that they're very helpful too, because most of those people we know will give honest assessments, and we trust what they've seen.
Okay.
And if you've been a college coach before, it's helpful too, because you know what level you're looking at.
Hmm.
So I do think there are benefits to those programs as well.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. Good tips. Good tips. All right. So I want to get back to you.
Hmm.
Right. So we've learned a little bit about your experience growing up, big sports family. So you're really playing multiple things. So can you give me a picture of what, in your experience growing up in sports, uh, you can, and also, playing at all levels, whether it's high school, college, prepared you for coaching, and what do you take from your experience coming up and as a player into your coaching experience to make you more effective?
Well, ironically, my dad told me at a young age I was going to be a coach, and I was like, no, no, I'm not. I'm gonna go be a therapist. I'm gonna move on with my life. Like, that was my initial thought. But I think the biggest thing that helped me understand my passion and understanding of basketball, not only growing up with my dad and watching film and watching him, and breaking down film after an AAU game, even, I was like, oh my gosh. But not just those experiences, but I had a 5 ligament tear in my knee, um, the summer before my senior season, which is a huge time for recruiting, because that's when you normally commit, the summer before your senior year. I was getting some Division I looks that I wanted, and I was happy about them, and then I blew my whole knee out. So having to sit out for a whole year and rehab and push myself back after doctors were like, oh, you should just really stop. And I was like, no, I have a goal. I want a scholarship, and I just have a passion for basketball. So watching from the sidelines, I started seeing things differently, obviously. Um, Started getting more passionate about it, realized how much I missed it. because that'll either make or break you. And even though I knew how hard the journey back was going to be, I still did it. So I knew that there was something deeper there. I was like, okay, I know this is going to be hard, but I'm still going to do it. So, uh, as far as like even having learning to walk again and then going back to jogging and playing and cutting, and it was a long journey. My senior night of high school, I think I was 8 months out of my surgery. And I just told my coach, I just have to start. I have to start. Like I really wasn't fully released, but I was like, I have to start. Pull me out, quick, but I have to start. So I played a couple minutes. Of course, I hurt my knee a little bit again, but I was like,
Oh
oh,
no.
it wasn't bad though. It tweaked, but I was like, whatever. I plus started my senior night cool. So I ended up being fortunate though, and at the time, Winston-Salem State, we had transitioned to the MEAC. So I always say I did get to live my Division I dream. So thank God that still happened for me. But it taught me a lot. And even as a player, going to college, like I said, the preparation, the physical preparation, the mental preparation, and the NCAA rules were a little less tight then. So we were doing a lot of conditioning and a lot of, mental toughness. But it just, like growing up in it, getting injured, playing college basketball. And then when I took the year in between grad school and coaching in college, I helped out with a local high school in Florida. So I kind of saw that perspective. And I also coached 5-year-old boys, which, oh my God, that's one of my favorite experiences ever. So I got in trouble for having 5-year-old boys press and they weren't supposed to. So I was like, I mean, we're trying to win here.
Okay, so it was supposed to be they're having fun, they're getting some exposure to the game, and you're out there pressing.
I'm like, no, that's not teaching them competition. They were supposed to play half court, you know, like not really pressure. I was like,
That tells me a whole lot about you, Coach Terry, for sure.
yes. Well, I was like, this doesn't make sense. So I had them pressing and they told me that I had to stop. So I was like, okay. So I brought them in and I was like, okay, as soon as they cross half court, trap them. I was like, you said I couldn't press. You didn't say I couldn't like pick them up at half court. So
now you're trapping. Look at that.
oh man, it was
Now
a great.
You volunteer with upward too, so like I know
That's
how
what it
upward.
was. That's what
Oh,
it
it
was.
was. It was the upward league.
But I didn't know that.
But
No, I didn't know.
that's
So
church. That's church, Coach Terry.
they can. Why can't church leagues press? So that was a funny experience for me because that taught me a lot about coaching too. Because I had 5-year-old boys, and boys don't think girls can play. So I had the you can't even play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
What are you telling us to do? And like, okay, give me the ball. So I had to show them I could shoot. I had to show them I could dribble and play. And then I had one one that didn't want to listen, and I asked him, I was like, "Do you want to run or do you want to stay in the drill?" I want to run. I said, "Okay." So I made him run, and he tried to stop, and I said, "No, no, no. You said you wanted to run. Keep it moving." So I mean, discipline in that regard. But at the end of that, the little boy told me how much he loved me, and his mom was shocked because like he was like so in love, and I was just like, I mean, all I did was discipline him, but it makes sense though when you think about it. And like I said, trying to teach, taught me how to teach people that don't believe in you initially, like how to pick up and believe in you because you just keep teaching them and keep trying to bring them in and keep trying to love them and show them that you care. And once they saw that I knew what I was talking about and that I cared about them, they they were pressing full court. And they had the cutest little responses to like their with Upward you have the books where you read the Bible verse and you ask them what it means, and they just had the cutest little responses, and it was like, man, the innocence of children. But they'll ask you whatever question they want, so they're very blunt, innocent and blunt, and but that taught me a lot about how to get someone to believe in what you were doing.
Okay, gotcha. So now as a coach, what parallels, because I'm trying to, what I'm getting to here is we talked about stereotypes for athletes, right? Thinking athletes are one dimensional, you
Hmm.
know, shut up and dribble, that kind of thing. But there's a lot that you can learn in sports that will make you successful in any area of life. So now, as a coach, what things do you see from your coaching experience and playing experience that someone could take into any arena that would help them be successful?
I would say anything in sports. I mean, everything you learn in sports just translates over. The communication, how you have to communicate on the court, how you have to communicate to your professors, to your coaches, any kind of communication, and how communication breaks down, you see negative results. So that translates. The discipline, um, what you eat, what you do in your off time, how many miles you run when no one is looking, or whatever the discipline part is. The time management, I mean, having to balance practice, weights, classroom, study hall, time management, and prioritizing what your times are. Sacrifice, I mean, once again, you get to college, you want to win championships, you got to sacrifice certain things. Um, for Gino and UConn is you can't have nails, and like some girls are like, oh my god, but if that's what the standard is and that's what the goal is, you can't do it. So you got to sacrifice.
So I'm sorry, what does Gino do? You said you can't have what?
Oh, like during this, well, I don't even know if it's even out of the season, but they're not allowed to wear nails, like acrylic nails or any color on their nails. Like you're not allowed to do anything. So
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
yeah, it's part of the team standard. So um, just stuff like that. I mean, that's sacrifice, something that you want to do, but you have to let it go. You want to go out late with your friends and you have practice at 8 a.m. the next day. Like, does that really make sense? So,
Right.
um, what else? Sports, I mean, it teaches you how to multitask. Like, yeah, you have to be a good student and you have to play basketball. You have to focus on how to accomplish those two goals, how to keep those in line so that you graduate on time or somewhat on time, with a decent GPA so that you can set yourself up to get another degree or, work in the world or whatever you want to do after you get a degree.
Yeah.
The experiences you get, like we were talking about being open-minded, you're going to have people on your team that don't think the way you think all the time. Might not have the same religion, might not have the same skin tone, might not have the same belief, might have voted for a different president. I don't know. So you have to be open-minded. The travel experience you get with basketball sometimes, a lot of people will never see in their lifetime. There's some people that don't have resources to do these things, but basketball has found a way to help them see something other than what they came from. So I mean, I think sports translates in every kind of way. I'm also a faith-based person, so the faith-based to me is it means everything in sports and in life. And then when all three of those correlate, it just makes a nice harmony for me. But the faith aspect, in sports, you have to have faith. Faith that all this practicing we're going to do is going to help us win. And in your spiritual faith, if you are a believer, You have to have faith that things will work out when you don't think they will. And that translates over into real life too. Like, oh, I hope these skills I've been working on help with my job. I hope we get this deadline on time. So I don't know. I think sports are a preview of the real world. Luckily, you have coaches that help you tweak it along the way, but sports definitely sets you up for what you're going to face in the real world.
Okay, good stuff. So let me ask you, what is the biggest adversity you've ever faced on the way to, being a college player and being a coach?
Mm. One was my knee for sure. One was my knee. Because that took me off the course that I thought I was going on. So I had to adjust and change my frame of thought and make the best of where I was planted. Um, I had to try to change the stigma of HBCUs along the way too. I went to Winston-Salem State, like I said, and I was the first Ram to go to the Masters of Psychology program at West Florida. And one of the first things they told me was, I've never heard of that school. And I'm like, yeah, it's the smaller HBCU 10 minutes from Wake Forest. And they go, oh, Wake Forest. But just trying to, that's been another thing, just breaking the stigma of HBCUs, because I don't know why sometimes there's a negative portrayal of the education you get. But I mean, I did an internship at Wake Forest and I went and got a master's degree. So it's more about you make the experience. Yeah, if you come in with a, 1.8 and you don't finish, then yeah, it didn't set you up. But if you go in there and, do what you're supposed to, you can make the most of any experience. So as far as the career, I guess my big biggest adversity to start off was I went to West Florida, finished, worked in counseling for a year, saw the Winston job open, and was like, I don't think they'll hire me. I don't have any, college experience or whatever. But thank God it worked out, and I don't know if it was adversity per se, but it was like I had to believe that something good was going to come out of it, even though I didn't know if I was qualified for what they were looking for. But luckily, all the stuff that I did along the way set me up for that. And I'll say one of the toughest things I've coached through was at Western Carolina. We had a really hard season, like injuries, a whole bunch, everything you can think of, and we had a losing season. And having a losing season is one of the hardest things that you will go through. I just, it kills everybody's morale. That's adversity for sure, because you keep saying, okay, we can do it this game, and then you lose. Okay, let's figure out how to, you're trying to be peppy and optimistic.
Yeah, and it
Like,
piles on.
well, we keep losing, so obviously it's not going to happen, like people. So that was hard. That was really hard to get through. Um,
So how do you deal with that? Like you mentioned a few of your adversities. What do you channel on? What do you use to push through those times? Use your last example as a starting point. Like you having a bad season and a losing season,
mhm.
and the morale is going down. Like, what do you do to get through that and push through?
For me, of course, it starts with faith. So I have a lot of spiritual talks, just trying to keep myself sane for one. But in those times, you just have to try to encourage people, let them know that it's a tough time. Um, you can't, I will say, you cannot deny reality. You can't go, oh, okay. Like you can't deny reality. Like, no, we're losing. We like we are losing for sure. So how can we change that? Like, how can we change that? So then accountability is going to be important. If someone's injured, hey, are you going to rehab like you're supposed to? Are you going to be back when you said you were supposed to be back? Like, you say you want to help, well, then help this way. Hey, if someone's ineligible, are you doing what you're supposed to do academically because you're supposed to be out here helping us too? Um, but just trying to keep them focused on the bigger picture too. Even if you're having a really bad season and it's a small victory, like they were number one in the conference, we lost by 5. That means a lot, because it may seem like, but if you're dead last in the conference and you almost beat the number one, I mean, hey, that is a positive.
So you leaning on moral victories now?
I mean, you have to do what you have to do to get up out of that. I'm not gonna lie to you, that is hard. It is hard, but
Okay.
um, you know, then you try to get people into the gym more. You try to, hey, well, let's work on your shot. Let's see how you can be more efficient. Let's work on this defense. Let's watch film. You try to do what you think would help, but I mean, at the end of the day, you just got to get through it. That's the only. It is hard.
Difficult.
It is
So
very
so
hard.
so you mostly lean on your faith
A
and
lot.
try to find some bright spots to highlight in the midst of it.
hmm And on the coach's side, you do what you have to do as far as if you need to bring in something different or um, you make adjustments as needed too.
What about the chemistry of the team? Is that a time when you kind of try to bring everybody closer together so they feel like they're kind of in it together and close knit? Does that
Oh
help?
yeah, because that's the time where the blame game starts.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
when you're losing, everyone wants to point fingers. So you definitely try to reel everyone in. Um, Try not to blame one person, one thing, one situation. Um, Try to nip that negativity because yeah, it'll turn into, well, you didn't make any shots. Well, you didn't defend your player. Well, you didn't, and
Right. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like, no, no, no. We as a team did not. That's when you try to reel them back in and use the we, because it is we. Like we're in this together. We did this as a team. We did not.
Okay. Gotcha. So they have to understand and keep in mind that, hey, we're in this as a team and
hmm
everybody has a role to play. And if we're going to get out of this, we have to do it together and rely on each other.
hmm Yeah, like negative communication and yelling at each other is not going to get us anywhere. And
Yeah.
that's one thing. I'll use my current team as an example. There was a drill before we got shut down. There was a drill we were able to do, and they had to restart 3 or 4 times. And it kind of almost got to the point I had to huddle them in and say, hey, listen, one thing we're not going to do is blame each other every time something goes wrong.
Mm,
Now, I'm not saying don't give people, constructive criticism. You have to, and you
hmm.
have to receive it. But we're not going to sit here and point fingers every time something happens. So let's just go ahead and cut it out, you know?
Right.
So I'm not saying don't tell her hey, you missed this. Hey, you did this. But well, you're not catching the ball. You're not doing this. It just turns into something that it shouldn't turn into. And if we can nip it earlier, the better.
Okay. Well, before I go into your long-term goals for your life and your vision, coaching and beyond,
hmm
and get your final tips for success, I wanted to ask you, as someone who's in coaching, a lot of people don't understand, like, if they want to become a coach, how is that even an option? What is the best path
hmm
to even get there?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to ask you your thoughts on what could somebody do to become a coach, a college basketball coach, number
Well,
one.
yeah. Because I will tell you, it's a lot more than what people see. People see, oh, they're out there coaching. That's all they do all day, you know. That's definitely not the case. Some people start as dobos, director of basketball ops, and work their way up. Some people start in the AAU area and work their way up. Um, a lot of people that played college athletics have a good chance of getting in, with college coaching because they've seen you play or they know what kind of player you were and they translate it over to coaching. There's a NCAA program called So You Think You Can Coach. Um, I think it's college athletes that it doesn't matter what level you play at, but it goes on during our convention. So there's ways to get in it that way. I would say if you were a high school or AAU coach, start building connections with college coaches. You don't have to push your resume out to every coach. You don't have to tell them how great of a coach you are. Like people watch, people observe. And if you are a good coach in your area and you know your area, if someone, let's say someone comes up to you and asks you about a player on your team, and then they ask you about a player that's not on your team, like, do you know that other player too? Because to be honest, a lot of college coaching relies on recruiting. So if you know your area, we know that you probably have connections in that area that can help us get in touch with players. So
Hmm.
I would say that's important. But for me, I can't speak for all coaches, but for me, I like people with good character. So I'm going to ask about you. I'm not gonna, I'll see you win games, coach players, know players, but I want to know about your character because at the college level, sometimes you get, um, sometimes it can be cutthroat and you don't want someone on your staff that is not going to be there for you and do the best for the program. And you have to have someone that understands NCAA rules, even if you don't know them all when you get there, like someone that's willing to take the time to understand what a violation is and, how to treat players. And you don't want someone on your staff that can't treat the players well. You don't want
Right.
someone on your staff that's full of drama. You don't want, an angry parent on your staff. Like there's just so many different things that can be taken into account. But there's also, I would say, join the WBCA. Make sure you're a member. They have a lot of conventions, a lot of networking opportunities.
Okay. What
So,
does that stand for?
Women's Basketball College Association.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you Google WBCA, if you're a high school college coach, there's memberships at that level. And when we can go back in person, hopefully, hopefully one of these years. For example, last year was in Tampa, and they had networking classes, stuff to help you get connected with other coaches, and
Okay.
one person, they might know another person, they might know another person. So like it helps you get acquainted with the college coaches. And this year was supposed to be in New Orleans, but unfortunately, COVID struck. So I don't know when we'll have it in person again, but I do know they're doing virtual meetings as well. So I would say networking is your friend. Um, if you know someone that can vouch for you when you are um, applying to these jobs, if you know someone who can vouch for you that knows somebody already that can make a call for you, that means a lot because sometimes people only see a name on paper and they don't know who you are. So, um, yeah, those are some keys I would say.
Okay. So you've given a lot of information I think is extremely useful for being successful in sports and outside of sports and in general. So I appreciate your time on that. I'd like to know more about your goals. What do you see for your life going forward as a coach? and then off the court as well, like your vision, your long-term vision for your life. What would you like to see happen down the road for yourself?
Hmm. Um, well, one of my goals has been met. I'm very grateful. So I'm a head coach finally. So that's one goal. Yes, we'll see how it goes. But no, I'm I'm excited. That's always been something that I wanted to give a try at least. Um, I've been on D2 and D1 level. D2 gives you more of a work-life balance. And that's the motto of D2. I'm not just saying that to knock D1, but D2 gives you more of a work-life balance. The thing is, they look for that stability, that just being able to enjoy your life outside of basketball sometimes. So I do like this level. I want to do big things at this level. I'm very grateful to be back in the CIAA and be back at an HBCU. What a time to be at an HBCU right now.
No,
So
right?
yeah, but I am ready to do big things at this level. Coach Taylor, the vice president of athletics over here, he's a Hall of Fame football coach. And so I told him on my interview that I want to be at that level one day, Coach Taylor. I want to be like you. So one day I want to
Nice.
be, I want to be someone that can win games, but also my biggest pride in coaching is having, someone 5 years later say, "Hey, I'm getting married. Can you come to my wedding?" Um, I've written letters of recommendation and seen players go to. I have a former player in the police department in Washington D.C. now. I have one is going to a master's of architecture program. Like it's really cool to watch them grow up, and I mean that means I'm getting older, but it's cool to watch. But I definitely want to, bloom where I'm planted. Um, Take Virginia Union to high levels again. They have a history of doing really well. I want to keep it going. I would love to go to an NCAA tournament one year. Just make my players better. I want some all conference players. I can't say where I'll end up in the future as far as coaching, but for now, I just want to be the best where I'm at, and you know, let people understand that Virginia Union is a good place to be. And I'm excited to be here. They joke with me about being a Ram, but CIAA, whatever. But as far as yeah, the future, I don't know. I'm happily married. My husband and I, want to have children one day, so hopefully that will be a blessing. Um, I don't know, we just try to live each day like
You're
we
gonna play
don't.
basketball?
My husband was an ACC football player.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he was. So he's football. I joke with him about his jump shot. I'm like, please stop. No, he actually doesn't have a bad jumper. He's just a football player, and they're just strong, and they don't know how to stop
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's a little different, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's good. He played wide receiver at Virginia Tech, so he was an ACC football player. So we're hoping there's some athletic genes in there. He was fast, so I'm like, I don't care if they run track, I don't care if they, play basketball, whatever they do. I just one day we hope to have children, and we're big travelers, so we want to travel, see some more. He's never been to my hometown, so I want to take him to France and do all that. Make my dad proud, continue to make my dad proud, and be there for my sisters and my mom, and live each day like we don't know what's going to happen because we don't.
There you go. You know what? That's simple, but very pure and very real at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so I asked two closing questions
Okay.
to all my guests. So the first question is, what is your idea of a meaningful life?
My idea of a meaningful life has always been how much I can make someone else's life that much more meaningful. Um, if I can touch somebody in a positive way, I feel so much better than if I taught them how to dribble a basketball. If someone can consistently say the same thing about my character, I feel like I've lived meaningfully. I feel like I've accomplished what I was trying to get across. If people consistently say the same thing, that means I've always been the same person, whether they like it or not. So my meaningful, like, my standards are not everybody else's standards. I have my own set of standards. I try to live life the way that I think God would intend and the way that I want to, and try not to worry about whether people like it or not. Because one thing we learn in life is the sooner you stop trying to please people or worry about their ideas about you, the more you live on your own path and your own purpose.
Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. So, at the end of your days, what will Tierra Terry's life represent?
Hmm. That's almost like the saying, when you have an obituary, what are they going to read about you? Um, I hope that people feel like I always, treated them with kindness. Um, I hope people always remember my faith and how strong it is. Um, I love my family and my friends, and I do anything for them. If I love you, I will do anything for you. If you've crossed me, that might be a little different. That might be the intensity you've heard. But no, I just want people to talk about my character more than anything. Well, I was a shooter back in the day, so I want them to know that I still shoot. But also, but more importantly, yeah, that I want to be known as a woman of faith, a good wife, a family member. I've always watched my father and looked at his footsteps and always wanted to be like him. And he always said, "No, be better than me." So that's what I would tell my children too. No, be better than me. So if we set a high standard, it'll just make the standards that much higher for every other generation. And just continue to, in a world of people changing and doing crooked and doing whatever they need to do to survive and throwing their character out the window and whatever, I want to just always remain consistent.
Man, I love it. I love it. And I think if more people could do that, we'd have a better world and happier people too, right?
For sure, for sure. And I will tell you, this is this might hit somebody different too, but this is a thing. I'm a lupus warrior. So I was diagnosed with lupus in 2009. So I actually played college basketball with lupus and had no idea. So it makes sense why my college career didn't go the way I wanted it to, because I was injured and some other stuff was going on, and it all makes sense now. But I just want people to understand that even in the face of adversity or tough times, or if you're given a different card than somebody else and people don't understand that you're ill because you don't look ill. um, but whatever you're going through, that's why you can't worry about other people. You have to fight within yourself. You have to find that strong social group that really cares for you. That's why I say whatever you do, find people that you know have your back. Even if you only have three people that you confide in, it's better than having a whole bunch of people that just want to know what you're going through and don't really care. So if you're fighting some kind of battle that someone doesn't know about, I just tell you to keep fighting. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody, but don't let what you're going through stop you from accomplishing what you know you can do.
Very inspirational. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you being willing to share that with people because I think that'll register and hit home for a lot of people.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, thank you for that.
no
Well,
problem.
Coach Terry, it has been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for being a guest. You've shared a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge about what it takes to excel in anything, whether you're looking to be in sports, athletics, or even outside of athletics. The lessons you talked about today transferable to anything. So I want to thank you for your time. Everybody's going to be watching Virginia Union to see how everything goes. We're rooting for you, and I know that with your focus on not just the basketball skills but the academics, that you're going to leave your mark regardless of how everything turns out. You're definitely going to leave your mark there and elsewhere. Thank you, and I wish you the great success in everything you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
This has been Life of Legacy, reminding you that at the end of the day, what your life means is up to you. What's your impact?